He stood there trembling. The gold medal felt heavier than he imagined, but not because of the medal, because of everything it represented. The stadium roared as Daniel Reyes raised his arms to the sky, tears pouring down his face. He had done it. He had just broken the 400-meter world record. On the biggest stage in the world, the Olympics. Cameras flashed. Commentators shouted his name. Flags waved. His mother sobbed uncontrollably in the front row. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. History has been made. Daniel Reyes is now the fastest man alive. But for Daniel, this moment wasn't just about speed. It was survival. It was redemption. It was a miracle. Born with severe asthma, Daniel's lungs had once struggled to carry him up a flight of stairs, let alone down a sprint track. Doctors told his mother he'd never live a normal life, much less become an athlete. He grew up in a rough neighborhood, abandoned buildings, sirens at night, crime on every corner. His mother worked 3 jobs. His father? Gone before he turned 5. The only thing that kept Daniel sane was running. No equipment, no teammates, just him, the road, and the rhythm of his heartbeat. But running hurt. It burned his chest, made his vision blur, made his limbs tremble. Still, he never stopped. While other kids played video games or hung out, Daniel ran laps around the broken schoolyard. He trained in the dark with a pair of second-hand sneakers and dreams bigger than the blocks around him. People laughed. Some even told him to give up. But he didn't. He earned a scholarship, then a national title, then a spot on the Olympic team. Now here he was, an Olympic gold medalist. The medal ceremony played like something out of a movie. Cameras zoomed in on his teary eyes. He clutched the medal like it might disappear. The national anthem played. He had done it for his mom, for the kids back home, for every underdog who'd ever been told they couldn't. Social media exploded. From asthma to Olympic gold. The miracle runner. A new legend is born. But the celebration didn't last. Just 48 hours later, Daniel woke up to a knock on his hotel room door. His coach stood there, pale and trembling, a phone shaking in his hand. "Daniel," he said, "you need to see this." The headline screamed across the screen in red, all caps. Breaking news, Olympic champion Daniel Reyes stripped of gold medal. Daniel blinked. "What?" he whispered. "Why?" He stared at the screen, confused. Shocked. Numb. No one knew the full story yet. Just that something big had been discovered. Something that would change everything. The headlines had crowned him a hero. Now, they were tearing that crown away. And that is where the Reyes story begins. One moment, he was the world's newest hero. The next, he was public enemy number 1. Daniel Reyes had barely finished his last press interview, still riding high on adrenaline and disbelief, when everything started to unravel. He was in his hotel suite, laughing with his teammates, gold medal still around his neck, when his coach burst into the room. Face pale, hands shaking. "Daniel," he said breathlessly, "they've opened an investigation." Daniel furrowed his brow. "Investigation? What for?" The coach swallowed hard. "They think you cheated." Daniel blinked, stunned. "Cheated?" He laughed awkwardly, waiting for the punchline. "Cheated how?" "I passed all the drug tests, man." But no one was laughing. That's when everything spiraled. News outlets across the globe lit up with breaking alerts. Talk shows began asking questions. Online commentators and armchair experts picked him apart frame by frame. The medal ceremony was now being replayed under a cloud of suspicion. But this wasn't about steroids. It wasn't about blood doping. It wasn't even about bribery or match fixing. This was something different. An anonymous whistleblower had come forward with disturbing footage, grainy, black and white security camera video from 6 months earlier. It showed Daniel Reyes entering a high-security facility late at night. The building? A lab owned by NeuroX, a private tech company already under investigation for illegal bioenhancement experiments. People demanded answers. Why was a world-class Olympic athlete sneaking into a secret biotech facility? What did NeuroX have to do with his sudden rise in performance? The Olympic Committee released a brief statement. "We are aware of the allegations and are actively reviewing the situation." But the damage was already done. Headlines exploded. Did Olympic star use illegal tech to win gold? Runner or robot? The truth behind Daniel Reyes' record-breaking race. The chip controversy, how science may be rewriting sports. Social media turned toxic. People who had called him inspirational just days before were now calling him a fraud. Comment sections filled with venom. Of course he cheated. Another fake hero exposed. strip the medal and ban him for life. Sponsors ghosted him. Brand deals were canceled overnight. TV appearances were pulled. His face was wiped from Olympic highlight reels like he'd never existed. Daniel stayed silent. What could he say? He hadn't done anything wrong, had he? He replayed that footage 100 times. He remembered going to NeuroX, sure, but it wasn't secret. It was supposed to be a medical consultation, nothing more. Something to help manage his worsening asthma. Something safe, legal, controlled. But now, everything he had worked for, every step, every sacrifice, every sleepless night, was collapsing. The world had loved him on Monday. By Wednesday, they wanted him erased. But as the whispers turned into roars and the headlines grew darker, one woman stepped forward. A scientist. A whistleblower of her own. And what she revealed next would blow the entire world of sports wide open. The headlines weren't slowing down. Theories spiraled out of control. And then boom, a woman appeared on national television. Calm, composed, and carrying a truth that would explode across the world. Her name was Dr. Lena Mallory, a former lead engineer at NeuroX, the same controversial biotech company Daniel Reyes had been caught visiting. She sat across from the interviewer, her face serious, her voice steady. Yes, she said. Daniel Reyes was part of Project Ascend. He volunteered for the trials. But let me be very clear, you didn't take steroids. He didn't dope. He didn't cheat in the way most people think. But he was modified. Modified? The room fell silent. Social media froze. She continued. Daniel had a neural accelerator chip implanted, designed to enhance motor coordination and reduce muscular fatigue. It doesn't inject chemicals. It doesn't alter DNA. It simply allows the brain to send faster signals to the body. It improves reaction times, reduces lag between the brain and muscles, and speeds up recovery. In other words, his muscles weren't stronger. His brain just helped him move faster. That chip was never meant to give him an edge, she claimed. It was marketed internally as a medical device, an experimental way to help patients with degenerative conditions like Parkinson's or extreme asthma. Daniel? He wasn't the first athlete to use it, just the first to be caught in the spotlight. The Olympic Committee's response was swift and harsh. Though neural augmentation wasn't specifically outlawed at the time, they branded the chip as technological doping and ruled that any athlete using such enhancements had an unfair advantage. Within hours, Daniel's world collapsed. The record he broke? Erased. The gold medal? Revoked. The Olympic invitation? Terminated. The future? Destroyed. He wasn't just disqualified, he was deleted from the history books. Outrage followed. But not just against Daniel. Against NeuroX. Against the Olympic Committee. Against the entire world of sports tech, which now found itself caught in a moral gray zone. Was a neural chip truly cheating? Or just the next stage in human evolution? Athletes had long used technology, special shoes, aerodynamic suits, altitude training, cryotherapy, nutrition science. But this was inside the body. It was invisible. It was new. And it scared people. Talk shows debated ethics. Scientists issued papers. And fans were divided. Half called Daniel a fraud. The other half called him a victim of a broken system. But through it all, Daniel stayed silent. The kid who'd once trained barefoot on cracked pavement now sat in the center of the biggest scandal in modern sports history. And yet, he hadn't even told his side of the story. Not yet. But when he finally did, it would flip the narrative one more time and force the entire world to ask a brutal question. Did Daniel really cheat, or was he just trying to survive? For weeks, Daniel Reyes vanished. No interviews, no statements, no defense. He went completely silent while the world debated his legacy without him. Pundits called him a coward. Commentators dissected his every race, questioning whether he had ever been clean. Some said his silence was proof of guilt. Others begged him to speak. But behind the scenes, Daniel was crumbling. He barely left his apartment. He ignored his phone. His mother tried to stay strong, but the hurt in her eyes was impossible to hide. The same media that had praised her as a hero mom was now replaying clips of her crying, this time as the mother of a disgraced champion. His coach? Resigned in protest. Said the system failed Daniel long before the medal was stripped. Protesters gathered outside Olympic headquarters, some demanding tighter regulations, others shouting for justice for Daniel. The world wasn't just divided, it was confused. No one knew what to believe anymore. Then, one evening, without warning, Daniel finally went live. No stage, no production team, Just a dim room, a laptop, and a young man with red eyes and a shaky voice. What he said shocked everyone. "I never wanted to cheat," Daniel began. "I never wanted to win that way." He paused, looked down, then added, "I just wanted to breathe." Daniel explained that in the years leading up to the Olympics, his asthma had gotten worse. Training became brutal. Doctors warned him his lungs wouldn't hold up much longer. InterNeuroX. They approached him through a sports clinic, offering what they called a non-invasive neural assist device, a chip that could help his body stay in sync, recover faster, and prevent respiratory collapse during exertion. They told him it wasn't performance-enhancing, that it was a medical breakthrough, not a shortcut. "They never said it would be illegal," Daniel said. "They told me it was safe, that it would let me train without collapsing, that it would let me finish one more season, one more dream." His voice cracked. "I didn't put that chip in my head to win gold. I put it in to survive practice." And then he said something that turned the world upside down. "I'm not the only one." He claimed that dozens of athletes, sprinters, swimmers, archers, even long-distance runners, had quietly undergone similar procedures. Not because they wanted to cheat, but because they were desperate to keep up in a sport where being just 1% behind meant being forgotten. Daniel wasn't a villain. He was the test subject of a new era, where medicine, science, and sport collided without rules. The reaction was explosive. Some people called him a liar, accusing him of throwing others under the bus. But many more saw something else, a scared young man caught in a machine far bigger than himself. And suddenly, the question shifted. Was Daniel really a cheater? Or was he the first casualty of a sports world that had no idea how to handle the future? He didn't get the medal back. But something even bigger happened. In the weeks following Daniel's emotional live stream, the world slowly started to shift. People who had once condemned him now listened. They saw past the headlines and saw the human being underneath. The scared, determined, resilient young man who just wanted to run without pain, without gasping for air, without collapsing on the track. Petitions began to circulate online. #GiveDanielBackHisGold trended in over 30 countries. Millions signed. Doctors, athletes, and ethicists spoke out. Even a few former Olympians admitted they'd explored similar medical technologies but were afraid to go public. Talks began within the International Olympic Committee, not to reinstate Daniel, but to address a deeper, more urgent truth. The rulebook was outdated. The world of sports had changed. Tech wasn't coming, it was already here. Neural implants, gene editing, smart fabrics, biomechanical suits, things once considered sci-fi were becoming reality. And Daniel Reyes had become the accidental face of a revolution no one was prepared for. But Daniel didn't want revenge. He didn't want to fight for a medal that no longer felt like it belonged to him. He wanted something better. He launched a foundation, Fair Play Future. Its mission was simple but radical: create ethical guidelines for how technology intersects with sports. Advocate for transparency. Educate young athletes on the risks of unregulated enhancements. Push for clearer definitions of what it means to compete fairly in the modern world. He started visiting schools, especially in neighborhoods like the one he grew up in. He talked to kids about self-worth, about dreams, about not letting pressure push them into dangerous shortcuts. He coached, quietly, humbly. And the young athletes he worked with didn't care about his scandal. They cared about his heart. Years passed. The Olympic world began to evolve. Eventually, a new division was introduced: augmented athletics, a category for athletes using verified neural, prosthetic, or biomechanical enhancements. It was controversial at first, but as technology became unavoidable, the move was hailed as progressive. And when it came time to launch the first games under this banner, they invited Daniel Reyes to light the opening torch. Cameras rolled. The stadium packed with fans. His name echoed through the air once again. But he said no. "I already had my moment," Daniel told the press. "Now, I want to make sure no one else loses theirs the way I did." And that was the moment the world finally understood. Daniel Reyes wasn't just a runner. He was a warning and a vision of what sport could become if we weren't careful. He lost his medal. He lost his records. But he gained something greater: respect, legacy, purpose. His story became a best-selling documentary, a teaching module in sports ethics classes, a case study in law and medicine. Daniel never returned to the Olympic track, but he had already crossed the most important finish line of all.